And on the list, we have Laurence Benson, a content creator who likes to promote Indonesian food to the world. How can he find Indonesian dishes in England, where he is right now? Well, to know the answer, we are now connected with him. Hi, Laurence.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, good morning, London.
Hello from England.
Yes, hello from England.
Hello from Jakarta.
Yes.
Now, first of all, could you please share with us why, from every countries in the world, you choose Indonesia?
Well, I moved to Indonesia 2 years ago, and because I've got friends that live there, I love the weather and the nature. The people are so welcoming, and it's just the best place in the entire world.
So you lived here, you said, you moved here 2 years ago. Were you living here for a long periods of time? And because we know right now you're actually in London.
Yes, so I first started coming to Bali in 2018, and then started traveling around Indonesia in 2019 and a bit in 2020. And then when COVID happened, I ended up being stuck in Bali, and I've been there ever since, until October of last year, so 4 months ago.
And you're planning to go back nearly in the future?
I'm planning to go back next week.
In
in a couple of days' time. I can't wait.
Okay, so from your
Yeah.
point of view, Laurence, what are actually the main differences between Indonesian food and food from other countries?
The main difference are the flavors, the spices, and also the variety of food. I mean, in England, like before I moved to Indonesia, I've only really had Italian, French, English food, a bit of Chinese, but I mean, the flavors are so bland compared to what I've experienced in Indonesia since I started trying the local cuisine.
All right. When you first tasted Indonesian food, was it shocking to you? I mean, we use a lot of spices here. Some of it are really, really spicy. Even some of the ingredients are pungent, and maybe you're not used to that kind of flavor, right? Because you just mentioned that Western food are rather bland, right? So tell us about
Very bland.
Tell us about your experience, your first time tasting Indonesian food, and what was the dish?
Well, actually, the first time I tried Indonesian food was actually my first ever TikTok video, which was gado-gado. So thankfully, that wasn't too spicy.
Right.
But since then, I started eating spicy instant noodles like Indomie, Pop Me, bit of Korean samyang noodles, and that I filmed all my reactions eating it, and that's what made me go viral in the early stages.
I see. So gado-gado was the first food that you tasted. It's basically a salad, right? I mean, you're familiar with salad, but this is a cooked salad with peanut sauce, right?
Yeah.
So speaking about similarities, Aubrey has asked you just now about the differences between Indonesian food and Western food. Now, what about the similarities? Do you notice any? Is there any similarities between the two?
Not really.
Not really. It's very different.
Apart from, not really. There's a lot of roti in Indonesia. I mean, that's in cakes. Whilst in England, we have a lot of sandwiches and like burgers, but you don't really have savoury roti in Indonesia. So it's quite different.
Right. Sorry. Okay, Ranga, go ahead.
Yeah, we're just curious now because Indonesia and our neighboring countries, our neighbors like Malaysia and Singapore, we're not that far off in terms of maybe taste. So we're just wondering if have you ever tried a Malaysian dish or a Singaporean, and if you can have any suggestion of, or not suggestion, maybe just an input for us.
Well, one of my favorite dishes I've tried is nasi lemak from Malaysia. I don't know if you've tried it before. It's delicious.
You like it?
And I actually find Indonesian food a mixture between Malaysian, Thai, and Chinese food. It's like somewhere in the middle. I think it's because a lot of Indonesian food is actually influenced from Chinese food, Malaysian food. For example, some dishes I had in Borneo, like the kway teow chasio. Have you heard of it?
We know kway teow.
Chashu, yeah, yep.
Yeah, like kway teow, that's like a Chinese influenced dish. So
Right.
I've tried different dishes from like China, some from Malaysia, like pad thai from Thailand, and Indonesia for me is like a blend between all three.
Right. You mentioned nasi lemak. Now, can you mention one Indonesian dish
Yeah.
that is quite similar with nasi lemak? We have also
Yeah,
something.
Nasi uduk.
Yeah.
Okay, you're good.
Very good.
So which one actually you prefer, Laurence? Like nasi uduk or nasi lemak?
I shouldn't say this, but I prefer nasi lemak to be honest.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there's more.
I shouldn't say that, but I love nasi lemak. It was my highlight for my trip to Kuala Lumpur.
Because there's more taste, more complete taste in nasi lemak, or what is it that draws you?
Potentially, but maybe I just went to a really authentic nasi lemak place in Malaysia. Whilst for nasi uduk, I just ate in Bali. And the flavor is actually quite different if you don't go to the authentic original place.
Okay. And Laurence, you asked also Jason Derulo to try Indonesian food, right? And eat with his hands. And how did you actually get him to do it? And tell us the process of making the content with Jason Derulo.
Well, actually, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have told him to eat with his hands because you're meant to eat it with a spoon or fork. But I've actually, since moving to Indonesia, I've always eaten with my hands because I add rendang to my nasi goreng every time. So I always eat it like this.
Right.
I assumed you ate nasi goreng with your hands, but you don't.
Yeah.
So I was very wrong there. And in terms of getting Jason Derulo onto my show, I was actually doing a collaboration with a popular club in Bali called Savaya. So they invited Jason Derulo and some other TikTokers to their club, and I managed to get some time with Jason Derulo and introduce Indonesian food to him in his villa.
All right. You obviously have asked a lot of people to try Indonesian food, right? How do people usually
people,
react based on your experience? I mean, of course, it depends on their background, right? If they've been around the world tasting different culture and food, they probably are more open to try new things, right?
Right, but actually people who I try getting on my show are the ones who haven't actually tried Indonesian food because they do the best reactions. So generally, the first impression is that they look at it and they're not too impressed with it. Doesn't look that great, doesn't look that appetizing. And then they eat it and then the explosion in flavors is like something we've never tried before. And that's what makes the best videos in my opinion.
Right, and more on that, we know that you're making a lot of your contents outside of Indonesia, even though you were here for quite some time, but you make a lot of contents outside Indonesia too. So that means you have to get some of the food there, so this is what we want to know, whether you actually buy them and then you cook them yourself, or do you actually get them from a restaurant, let's say now in London, in the UK, there is any maybe Asian restaurant that you go to, and then you make your content from there. So how do you normally do it and then get the people, when Crazy was asking there, how to get them actually involved too in your content?
So in London, there's actually a restaurant called Pino's Warong, very close to where I live. Fantastic Indonesian food. It's authentic street food. I can't actually cook Indonesian food, but my girlfriend, she can cook. So I generally get the food from her, and then I've got someone else tasting the food to make sure it's authentic, and that's when I introduce it to my guests. So it's like quite a long process. I've got to make sure it's real before I introduce it to my guests, because otherwise people in the comment section will get quite annoyed at me, I think.
Right. Now, have you tried other restaurants? I mean, you just mentioned that you usually get the food for your content from a nearby restaurant from where you live, and you said it's good, right? And I believe your judgment because you've been here. You lived in Indonesia for a long time, and you've tasted a lot of food here. So if you can compare the food here in Indonesia to the restaurants in the UK, how would you score them? I mean, I've tried Indonesian food in Europe, and it's nothing like the ones we have here in Indonesia. It's all bland, no spices, and even the color is different. The appearance is so different. Like nasi goreng, it's it's supposed to be brown, right? While in Germany, it's yellow. It's like nasi kuning. So
Oh,
tell
really?
us about the
Nasi kuning,
restaurants
yeah.
in the UK.
So from my experience, well, for me, at first it was pretty good. But only the difficulty is finding the authentic local ingredients that you can only source from Indonesia. So these restaurants in London, they've got to use spices that are actually from Thailand or China or from other countries which aren't in Indonesia. And also the chefs, they are from Jakarta rather than from specific regions in Indonesia. So it's like going to a restaurant in Bali. You're never going to find the same pempek as you would find in Palembang, for example,
Right.
or the same papeda that you find in Papua in Bali. So yeah, it's from my I was just very happy, grateful I was able to find Indonesian food in London. So for me, it was a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I saw your Instagram account that you just posted your guests to try chendol. You get chendol from that restaurant?
S Chendol. So
Yeah.
that's actually from. Oh, I filmed that in Bali actually.
Ah, okay.
One more question for me. You mentioned about your girlfriend. She cooks, right?
Oh yeah.
She cooks Indonesian food.
She cooks, yes.
Is she English or
What sort of?
is she English or Indonesian?
So she's from East. She's from Kalimantan Timur, East Kalimantan. in
No
Indonesia.
wonder, because you know what? Cooking Indonesian food is not easy.
Exactly.
You are so lucky.
It's very difficult, and she spends a lot of time cooking it, and she absolutely loves it, and that's one of the reasons why I've become so passionate about Indonesian food, because she's always talking about it, asking me to try different dishes, always cooking it, and I'm very fortunate I'm able to try so much delicious food.
Exactly.
Very
So
interesting.
that is very interesting. So we want to know now what's your favorite Indonesian food, or the one that you very, very much like when your girlfriend prepares it for you?
My favorite is sop buntut.
No.
Buntu.
That's good.
Sop buntut. I love tongseng kambing
Oh.
and soto betawi. Those are my top three. All from Jakarta.
Whoa.
You love soup.
Yes.
Yes. All the juice is coming out every time
also
you
like
eat
that.
them.
Yeah.
But I don't eat it very often. That's the thing. So when I do eat it, it's like a special meal for me. Rest of the time, I'm always eating nasi goreng with rendang.
Okay. And so the last question for this segment, Laurence, what is your goal in making Indonesian food content?
Okay, so my ultimate goal would be that to make Indonesian food as popular as Thai, Chinese, or even Italian food in the UK. I mean, in central London right now, we have a place called Chinatown, right in the centre of London. And there's only one Indonesian restaurant in London, and there's hundreds of Thai, loads of French, Italian, but only one Indonesian.
Perhaps.
So I would love it for it to become more popular, more well-known, and spread Indonesian food to the entire world.
Perhaps you can see this as a business opportunity for you and your girlfriend.
Potentially, I'm just focusing on making the best videos possible and showing more people about Indonesian food. But I'm very happy to help out other restaurants who are selling Indonesian food.
Oh, very interesting. You seem to know a lot about Indonesian, so we are going to test you. We're gonna play a game called How Indonesian Are You? But after the break, we have to go on
We
a
have
little
time.
break. But after the break, we will still be talking to Laurence. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.